everyone, welcome to the new episode of Hey CTO. Today we are talking about product. So as we explained in previous episodes, so on our season 3, we decided to start talking with communities and understanding a little bit better the Portuguese ecosystem around tech. Today we actually brought a very interesting flavor inside tech, because it's not tech by itself, but actually the mind that definitely enables the tech to be built and to solve customer problems. So we are talking about product, and to talk about product in Portugal, no one better than André Albuquerque, André Marquet, two of the people that I admire the most in the product space, to talk about how we are in Portugal regarding the topic, where we see the opportunities of growth, what's in it for us, in this area. And I think that for starters, I would love for both of you to introduce yourselves, and so that people know a little bit better who you are. So who would like to start? Albuquerque, Marquet, who wants to kick off?
I think you can go, Marquet. I think you can go.
Okay, so well, first and foremost, thank you, Sara and Pedro, for inviting me to be here. Super glad, also because I'm also here with André, who I admire a lot, and we have actually been working together for the last 3 years or so with a very specific project that we might talk a little bit further along the podcast. So I'm a co-founder of Beta E, or Beta I, or whatever you want to call it, but most people here in Portugal call it Beta E, and also Productized. I'm a faculty at Católica in Lisbon and now Técnico Mais, and I'm also working as a consultant for Cofidis for the last year or so. Yeah, for people that don't know what Productized is essentially it's a company that it was born out of a conference called the Productized Conference. It's a yearly event that brings people in the product community, professionals, to discuss strategies, tactics, techniques, to create, launch, and scale successful products. So we have had featured speakers, keynote speakers, people like Gibson Biddle from Netflix, Alan Clement, Jeff Flash, many others. And it also features workshops, networking opportunities, interactive activities to help attendees really create meaningful connections and help them scale successful products.
It's the conference of product in Portugal. Let's be honest.
Yeah, right. So the last in-person edition was in 2019, just before the pandemic. Then we moved online, and we actually ended up organizing online events. But the next in-person event is going to be next year in 2023 in October.
Very well.
So there you go.
Revelation.
Revelation, exactly.
I'm excited about that. Okay, I think it's my turn. So I'm also André. So I'm currently leading product design and research at a startup called Kitch. We started mid 2019, a food tech company. Great timing to start the food tech company right before the pandemic. I promise we had nothing to do with it. We just rode the wave. Early this year, we decided to sell the company to Glovo, unicorn out of Spain. I think after 18 months of operating the company, it was a really great opportunity to join forces with an amazing company and kind of ride this battle of the food delivery wars. And I think Glovo brings a lot of weapons and power and knowledge and experience into the table. And I think the Kitch team is really a lucky team. I'm the luckiest one because I get to work with them, but we're all lucky to have Glovo as our partners. Besides Kitch, I lead a product called 1 Month PM. I look at it as a product. We look at it as an accelerator of product thinkers. So a way to make product knowledge accessible, affordable, and honestly fun, and equip people with the skill sets, the frameworks, the understanding to build the products that will solve future problems. So that's 1 Month PM. I also teach at Católica, as André mentioned. I both had masters in executive education, trying to bring a bit of the product thinking and product content to students. And finally, I work at a VC called Shilling. where I'm an operating advisor. I help the portfolio companies get to the next level and bring my experience into these new startups, new founders, hopefully not making as many mistakes as I've done in the past, though they're going to make new mistakes, and that's fine. Hopefully I help them reflect over those mistakes. And yeah, I think my career has been always with startups for the last 10 years. And before that at Google. And yeah, I think we'll have more time to discuss product, but that's basically what I do today.
Fantastic.
Cool. Thank you. Thank you for this introduction. And I hope that now people knows who you are. And I would like to bootstrap this discussion around product management by asking you how it's product management today in Portugal. How do you see it? And how this whole culture around product started in Portugal. So I don't know who wants to start elaborating around this first.
Marquet, I think you started first. You can go.
Yeah.
There.
Yeah, so I was thinking about this a little bit. Sometimes I do, because sometimes people ask me this on Slack, or they ask me this. So how's the product scene in Portugal? And before that, I was asked a lot, how is the startup scene in Portugal, right? And for the startup scene in Portugal, I developed this dojo analogy. So if you go to the karate dojo, you have the white belt, the yellow belt, I guess the red belt, brown belt, and eventually you get to go to the black belt, right? So if you think about it, Silicon Valley is obviously the black belt, right? So I think there's no question about it.
Of course.
And then maybe in Europe, London is arguably the brown belt, and Berlin the brown belt, and that places Lisbon maybe on a yellow orange belt. In product, I would say we're definitely not white belt anymore. I think if you would ask me 7 years ago when I started Productized, or maybe before that, I would say we're not even in the dojo. We're not even doing karate, right? so no belt at all, right? But I would say right now it's a yellow belt. And it's a yellow belt with maybe, when they are about to go to the next belt, they put some stripes on the belt. So it's a yellow belt with some orange stripes. That's how I would put it
So
nowadays.
it's in between.
In between.
So I agree. I think I think product management in Portugal, or the people within the product management ecosystem, are boiling with curiosity, but I think they still need a lot of fights to really prove themselves. A lot of roadmaps delivering features, products, delivering on outcomes. I do believe that, unfortunately, the majority doesn't actually get to do this as much as they wanted. I think they're stuck in a lot of companies that are not necessarily following the best product practices. I think right now, if we look at it's we could almost say, like, we don't have product management in Portugal. We have a bunch of product owners and a lot of product managers hidden as project managers. And I think that defines a lot more how product is in Portugal today. Unfortunately, I think it's a bit of a cultural problem, a management cultural problem of a lot of these companies that are basically gobbling all the product talent and stucking them inside companies and teams and projects that don't get them to be the PMs they can and should be. So I'd say that is what's happening within those who are already within product management in Portugal. Those who are not, I think there's a growing interest. There is massive interest in understanding this, because I think the biggest difference in the last few years is that suddenly product companies or products went from being a minority to, if you're not a product company today, you are not even competing, or at least you're not setting yourself for a future success. And I think that interest is a correlation, and I think that's what we're seeing.
No, for sure. And I can even add, right? Like, I think that maybe 10 years ago, I think that we were heavily focused in projects, in services. And I think that, like, let's be honest, right? Like, Startup Lisbon started in maybe like 2013, I think, and you were there with Uni Places, Albuquerque, for sure.
Yeah.
And if we take a look at it, like, we don't even have 10 years of the startup scene, or at least kind of a proper startup scene. So I think that product managers need. So the need for the project managers is kind of just emerging in the last maybe like 5 or 6 years, which I think that probably there needs to be some sort of correlation with the startup scene, the unicorns that we are seeing and how popular is becoming product management in Portugal. Would both of you agree with this statement, or would you challenge it?
I agree. I agree that at least a new generation of product building, and then of course company building, started maybe in the last 10 years. I think it was a bit of the result of going through a crisis and the type of opportunities that creates to people. Because I mean, there's a lot of companies pre-Startup Lisboa that built, sold, they created a previous generation of leaders who now are many of the investors. I mean, I look at Schilling where I work, and most partners built technology companies, sold those companies, and made money now investing back into the ecosystem. And they were pre-Startup Lisboa, and I think this is a new generation for sure. Though I still believe that it's going to take time. It's going to take time because you got to ship products that succeed. You got to reap the rewards of shipping those products and then bring them into the next generation of PMs, or even yourself building a new product, which infuses new ways of working within the ecosystem to really get it going and continuing. I think it's a continuous delivery of experience.
Mm-hmm. For sure.
Yeah, look, I totally agree. I think there's there's maybe 3 or 4 waves of on the tech scene here in Portugal. So the first wave was back in the early 90s, where we had people like Celso, Martinho, and others, right?
Yeah.
Creating Sapo and creating the first internet companies here. And I would argue that there was not really a product focus back then, right? So those guys, they were essentially trying to build for the technological challenge, and
Cool tech.
yeah, and I really admire, because they were pioneers. They really started and kickstarted the whole show. And then you have a second wave, which is led by companies like OutSystems that were created in the early 2000s, just out of the 90s, just out of the dot-com crash. And those, arguably, they were much more product focused from the beginning, right? They had a much more international mindset. They were understanding that their product is a tech product, but it's not just for the Portuguese market. It should go out there. And what really forces you to become product driven, if you're not, is the international exposure. When you go out, you start to realize, oh, it's a big world out there. There's lots of people doing stuff, lots of competition. So we better do something which is a little bit more productized. Otherwise, there's no margin, there's no revenue, and it's really hard to compete. And then the rest of the story was told by André very well, I would say, which is in the early 2010s with Crisis and Startup Lisboa, and I might add also Beta E and other players. We had this new wave of entrepreneurs which were much more startup first or product first. And now I think the big question is, now that we have these founders being part of the VC community and so on, we are talking about product-led companies, right? And how it's not just about the startups, but also more traditional companies that have been out there. Companies like the one I'm working for right now, like Cofidis, that were very traditional companies, were definitely not in a product-led movement, and now they want to jump in. And that's what I have seen in the programs that I've organized. I think that's also what André is looking when we check the list of people that are going through these courses. We see lots of people from very traditionalistic companies that you would not have guessed in the first place. And now finally, and I think this is a novelty of the 2020s, of maybe of the pandemic revolution, you might want to call it whatever you want, people are finally realizing the importance of product. And that's why I think we have this momentum, this strong momentum of product going on.
Yeah, that actually takes me to a question. So if we see from a talent perspective in Portugal, do you feel that we are more engineering focused or product focused? And because I know several people, and including inside OutSystems, that came from a computer science background, and I believe that in other companies it's like that as well. And then they continued to grow into a product management. So do you think we are still in that point? So everyone comes from another background, and then eventually they start evolving into the product management. So what's your perspective on that?
So I can go on that one. I think first, product talent is a bit hard to define. You're not really a PM until you are. It's a bit of a catch-22, right? While engineering is different, right? You can study into engineering. You can immediately start your career as a software developer. So I would say that, and I think we were discussing this before the show started, which is Portugal is still a bit seen as kind of a engineering talent hub, but not often because of the right reasons, often because it's cheaper than somewhere else. And I think we have amazing engineering talent. We have some of the best universities in the world, graduating a lot of engineers here, but then they're stuck in mediocre companies with mediocre, and I'm being very positive about this, mediocre managers and mediocre processes. And it's really not taking the whole potential of these super smart people. So answering there, I think we have more of an engineering talent, at least perception wise. But then again, I also believe we have amazing talent that is stuck in mediocre roles and is not taking full potential of how these people can grow and become great product thinkers, and then really kick off this talent, this product talent that a lot of other companies can come to Portugal and look at us and say, wow, we can really have amazing product thinkers, product builders, product managers eventually out of this country, instead of just being the kind of this outsourcing hub that we're getting cheap but great engineering talent. Yeah, that's what I think.
Yeah, I totally agree. I would totally. I can only second that. And let me put the focus here on talent, which is, we have seen, and I guess we have seen so many people that were working and doing stuff that were really not, they were not exploring their full potential. And once they get into product, they become much more productive in many ways. And it's a narrative that belongs also to the way that the Portuguese economy is organized. So we have lots of people that are doing menial or suboptimum jobs to their talent potential. And I think product in many ways allows them to become much more close to their talent potential, if you understand what I'm saying. So that's a story that I've seen times and times again, especially from people that are not coming from the engineering background. So people that have a marketing background or management background, or even a social sciences background, more classical ones, or even psychology sometimes, and they move into product, and then they realize product is a great way to get into tech without being technically a techie, right? So yeah, and I think that the opportunities are definitely there still.
And tell me one thing. And so, if we see that the opportunities are still there, how can we hack, the current situation? So at least in my opinion, and from what I've been hearing so far, we have some sort of shortage of talent. So for people that are, full-fledged product managers, that can go to any company in the world and do an awesome job. So there, we don't have a lot of people there here, and we today have some product managers that eventually, just like Albuquerque was saying, they are kind of stuck. They don't have the autonomy that they would like to. They are probably a little bit more similar to product owner than a product manager, maybe much more, kind of, team facing than customer facing, and looking to, OKRs and really kind of, managing a product. That's exactly what this is all about. And I understand that this is not easy, right? Like, you can study software engineering, just like Albuquerque was saying, but you don't have a degree to study, product management. Not in Portugal. I don't know what about other countries. So do you think that the only thing that we can do is, just kind of you wait that the next 2 or 3 generations eventually come up and level up the game of this current situation? Or do you think that we can do, things like, productize 1 month PM and really try this sort of kind of growth hacking to compensate the lack of, not only shortage of people, but also of knowledge? in Portugal?
Yeah, let me just maybe begin. I think you kind of nailed it in the question itself, right? The way I see it, things like Productize, 1 month PM, the product courses, etc., just has catalyzers to make it grow faster and stones in the shark to have ripple effects and actually have progression, because but that's just part of the equation, right? But I think it's what we have been doing is what we have been doing for the last 7 years in my case, or 8 years right now. um, is that it's shaking a little bit the ecosystem, say, hey guys, product is important, why is it important? And then people realize, okay, now we understand what can we do. Oh, there's this course, and you can do this course, and you can train yourself, and you can go to this conference, and so on and so forth. So that's definitely part of the equation, right? So that's one of the aspects. The other aspect, which I think it's a little bit much more complex, which is uh, okay, if the talent equation is solved, how you solve the rest? Well, I think that's not so easy, because lots of these companies are not going to be uh, productized, right? They're not going to go. So you had digital transformation, and that allowed, and you had a percentage of companies that were digitally transformed. And now I think only a fraction of those companies are going to actually go through the productization transformation, which is even harder, because digital
Super
transformation is
cool.
about digitizing processes and
Yeah,
becoming digital, and maybe having an app and a website and orders online. Productizing is managing a product and having a product philosophy, having product managers and yalla yalla, and that's much harder to do. So I think that's the challenge that we are facing right now. It's a big challenge, a huge challenge.
it is.
So the way I see is, if we're thinking about how do we kind of crack the, we need more product thinkers, and I'm saying product thinkers rather than product managers, because I think I truly believe in an empowered engineering organization that are product engineers, but can be product managers, can be product designers, can be product anything. I call my teams product X, because whatever the role is, it will always come after product, because I want people to think product first. So I think partially we need the companies to understand that they need product thinking infused in their execution. And I think the best way of making this happen is letting kind of the free market destroy their market share, because someone else is building a better product than whatever they have. And that will tell them, look, we need to build differently. And I think that situation will hopefully make good managers, good leaders in organizations understand they need change. And that change comes from rethinking the skill sets of those who are there, rethinking who they need to hire, rethinking maybe the type of leadership they need to hire to make sure that they design the org the right way. On the other hand, for people, I usually recommend people to think themselves as products, right? If you are a product, your skills, your knowledge are your features, and companies that hire you, maybe your company is your customer, you need to understand what they look for. How can you solve their problems better? And how can you be the product that solves their problems better? Of course, one way biased is 1 month PM, of course, and Productized as an organization, I think they do amazing stuff. So joining these organizations, because they're built for anyone, they're affordable, at least in a level that can sustain the organization. They're affordable, they're accessible, they're designed in a way that's actually fun. It's not a hassle. It's not something that you go through because someone's forcing you to go through. I think that's a great way. And then the other ones, I think they're a bit more informal. But a lot of people ask me, okay, how do I become a PM? Because it's really hard, right? It feels like this
It is.
elite organization. Yeah, that how do you get there? You got to be one to be hired as one. It's just crazy. And if you talk with a lot of product managers, you ask them, oh, did you start as a PM? And they all say, no, I fell into the role. I became a PM. And most, I'd say maybe 89%, it's anecdotal data, but I'd say majority of people become PM because they did something like they were overperformers in their current role, and the product org created an opportunity and they picked internally that overperformer, or maybe you were the most expert person within an area of the company and product needed to productize that area and you became the de facto person to do that. Or maybe you picked an unsexy project or initiative within a company and you became the expert, and suddenly that created an opportunity. And of course, you're going to be the product manager for that. So the majority of people get into product management that way, and it's an internal transition and horizontal transition. And oftentimes what I'd say is like, try to find sponsorship, more than mentorship is sponsorship. People, your manager, a diagonal manager that looks at you and says, this person could potentially be a product manager as soon as the opportunity rises. And you suddenly see yourself becoming one. Of course, equipping yourself with knowledge and information like what a program like 1month PM would give you is basis, because then you want to be prepared when the situation comes, right? You don't want to be suddenly surprised and you fail on that. But I'd say like this is the way to crack the equation.
For sure. And if I may, this is almost like reverting the Peter principle, right? Like the Peter principle tells you that you're getting promoted to the point that you're incompetent, and so you get stuck. And so preparing yourself, investing in yourself so that when you get to the point that you're a PM, you already know what needs to be done. Sure, you lack the experience, but at least you have the basis. You will know how to survive the first probably like 3 months or so. I think that becomes super, super important. No, very, very well said.
Yeah, I think most product managers feel imposters most of the time, right? Especially when they get to the job and the first time, just either because they were parachuted into the job or because they were promoted randomly and they didn't realize. But yeah, it comes with the territory. It has always been that way a little bit, and I think it will continue to be, no matter how much formal training. But formal training definitely has a place. And I think that's the good news. Now we have much more training opportunities, either structured training opportunities like the ones that we have set up, or unstructured training opportunities. If you search YouTube nowadays for product management content, you can have an entire degree on product management because you have everything there. All productized videos are on YouTube for free for anyone that wants to check out, Marty Kagan, Melissa Perry, and yalla, Teresa Torres, you name it. So
Yeah, and now I wonder, because now that we have several X, we have all this content available, and we are still a yellow belt. 7 years ago, we didn't even had any belt. So I wonder, how was Productized created? What was the drive behind, and was Portugal prepared for that? Did it immediately had people interested in joining the community? So how was that
yeah,
7
I think
years
it's a
ago?
great question.
Love it. That's the beauty of making something alive.
That's the extra
We
another
need to wait
guest.
for that to be ready.
Never be ready. You're never ready when you have kids. But trying to answer your question. Well, I tell you what, the project was in the shelf since 2012.
Oh,
And
wow.
and all by that name, Productized, right? And I always had like the same idea. So I started working as a product manager back in 2008 at Nokia. And then I worked in a Portuguese company called Wit Software in Coimbra. And then I eventually ended up in Huawei in Lisbon. Uh, and then we decided to create, the first TEDx in Portugal, and eventually that led to the creation of Beta E, and so on and so forth. So what I realized, not at Beta E, this is before I engaged with startups, right? This is when I was in my corporate job, was that we didn't know how to do product. We didn't have a product mindset. We didn't have a product thinking way of doing things in Portuguese in the Portuguese companies, I guess. And then when I was working at Nokia, something that André already spoke about was very evident, which is, yes, they saw us, and this was in the early 2000s, right? They saw us as tech talent, engineering talent, but no way we would have any kind of product responsibility. So, and I wondered, why? Are we less than the German guys? Are we less than the French guys or the American guys? It's like, can we not think about the product? And the reason is that the rationale is management decision. Product is it's a management role, right?
Yeah.
I mean, you can do product X, but product management by definition is also it's a management role. So that will be much higher level decision management decisions, and they didn't trust Portuguese people to do that at all. So that made me really think about it, and I thought, this is something we should deal with. It's not rocket science, not impossible. So I decided that we should do something about it, and that's what I did. But to be very objective to your question, Sarah, back in 2015 when we did the first edition, um, and I think I was telling this just before the podcast, but the first person I called to ask for money to organize the event and ask sponsorship was the CEO of OutSystems, and he told me yes, right, and that gave me a boost of confidence that I should do something about it. And eventually we did, and the conference had 400 people in the first edition. Some from Portugal, a lot from outside of Portugal, even in the first edition, even if it was the first one and no one knew about it. And yeah, the rest is history, as they say.
Amazing, amazing. And what about 1 month PM? So, at 1 month PM is that sort of I don't know even how to call it, a phenomenon, like something, like that, Andre kind of, sent like a LinkedIn post maybe 1 year ago. I don't know, like I don't want to lie, but it's kind of fairly new. Let's be honest,
Yeah,
right?
it is.
And then all of a sudden it's like it's always Black Friday, like courses being completely unavailable because you have like 20 spots and you have like 200 people signing up for that. And I'm amazed, like I never even see something like that working. Like tell us, is like Portugal hungry regarding product? How did you make this work? It's amazing.
Yeah, I think so. First of all, appreciate the words. It really means a lot. And I think the way I thought about it is when you're a PM, you start understanding that you're working for people. There's this servant leadership, servant role that anyone that puts the product hat has to have. And the moment you work for people, you start speaking with them, you start understanding them. And what people were saying to me is they were hungry for success more than for product. They're hungry for success. And if you think about the dynamics of successful organizations, success is driven by products that work, and products that work are normally built by organizations, product organizations, and product orgs are built by people who understand product thinking. So I thought, okay, how do I get more people to think product first, to maybe think like the best product builders out there? And I started digging a bit, like, okay, this is about education. This is about bringing content in a way that people want to consume it. The problem with recorded content is that it's a bit like relying you going to the gym by yourself. Like there's a moment in time where you're not going to go, whether because you're tired or you don't really like it, or it's not done the way that you'd love it to be. You know what makes people go to the gym? When you have a class, or when you have a personal trainer, when you have a commitment that you need to go, whether because you paid or because people are expecting you to show up. So I started thinking, okay, how do I design a program that feels like a personal trainer if you want to get product knowledge? At the same time, I started speaking with people and trying to understand what keeps them from joining courses or joining entities, organizations that deliver content. And a lot of people say it's too expensive, or they say it forces me to take vacation time, or doesn't fit my busy schedule, or it's taught by people who are not actually doing, they're just teaching for a living, or it's even old type of content. And I started realizing, okay, those are the problems, those are the opportunities. And I started designing 1 month PM around this, making an accessible program that fits people's busy schedule, that is built and delivered by someone, myself, that is actually building products on their day-to-day and bring that experience into the program, ideally in a fun way that anyone can join because it's remote, it's online, it doesn't force you to actually go somewhere, it doesn't get you to take vacation time. And I kind of built a draft and launched it very informally in my LinkedIn 2 years ago. It was actually 2 years ago. And with a target of like running the first program in January 2021, that's when we launched it, with like, oh, I'm going to get like 10, 15 people joining the first program. I'm going to get their feedback, iterate, and then relaunch it. And I did that. In the first 24 hours, I got 70 people enrolling. And it's like, wow, I'm not expecting
Crazy.
like 70 people in a class. That's crazy. So I
Paid,
actually
paid customers,
paid
right?
customers, yeah,
70
paid
paid customers,
customers
not
in
just
24
users.
hours out of a LinkedIn post, which was crazy. And I said, okay, let me actually split these between January, February, and March and have like 3 cohorts. And then I actually closed payment enrollment because it was crazy. If I got more people, I wasn't expecting. And then suddenly I got waiting list. Like I get another 50 in the next 24 hours. And I was like, wow, this is crazy. And that's kind of how it went. And I attribute that first growth to communicating, positioning, and building something that people actually want based out of discovery. And then the continuous growth was more about word of mouth, of delivering it like people expected and wanted. I usually say this was one of my first learnings on my professional career was a former manager saying, look, you might do this job over and over again, but for people, it's going to be the first time and maybe the only time. Do it like it's the first time. And I kept doing that every month, and that people start bringing more people and start growing. And we have 2,000 people in the waiting list. And as you say, like we have 30 spots a month for my program at least. So yeah, it's working really well. People are hungry,
Best
as you
best
said.
conversion ever.
Yeah, it is
Amazing
true. It is
stories.
true.
Before we reach the end, I need to ask something, and for our listeners that want to become product managers, what advice would you give them?
Yeah, like one advice, right? Kind of to start.
Marquet, you want to go first?
Um, I have lots of conversations like that, right?
Imagine.
That's part of what I do when people. So we have also a course in Catholic. We started also, I guess, 3 years ago, just a little bit before 1 month PM. André called me or sent me a message, say, "Hey, André, we should meet." And this was, I guess, December uh, 2019 or something like that. And by January 2020, just before the pandemic, we went to Catholic. We spoke with the vice rector, the dean there, Celine, and we kind of picture, hey, we have this amazing thing called product management, and we wanted to do a course, executive course about it. And it was like, yeah, what is this product management? Why should we do it? And we kind of went through that, but she kind of bought the idea, and in yeah, I think in April or June we launched the first program. And because of we have this ongoing program, and by the way, today is actually the last day of the current cohort, which is the digital product management 5th edition already, a 9-week
Wow.
program. We decided to, well, I've decided that part of what I should be doing is just talking with prospective students and understanding, well, is this course for you? Is it 1 month PM? Is it something else? um and so I have lots of these conversations, people, and I guess there's, you know like everything else, there's maybe a couple of options at least. So maybe you want to understand why you want to go into product in the first place.
Mhm.
And 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 because product is becoming popular, you might want to go to product, not because of the best reasons, right? um just because you think it's a well-paid job, or because you have some friends on LinkedIn. It's such a cool job, and we had lots of these memes of the Facebook product managers working from the swimming pool and so on. And I guess that there was a little bit of flack because of that. So one, and really understand why you want to do this. It's important, but secondly, that most of the people that I end up talking to are actually very good candidates to become product managers. So it's very, very rare that I have people that I understand, this person is definitely a no-no for the profession. So we have people. Sometimes I speak with people in customer, in customer positions, so in customer facing or in customer support positions, and those are very good candidates because they usually understand the product really, really well.
Sure.
Sometimes I speak with, like I told you just before, people in marketing or managerial positions, and they understand something is going on in the industry, the product transformation, digital transformation. So they want to be able to beat the Peters principle, like you said, right,
Yeah.
Pedro? Um, and they know instinctively that if they're not training themselves, the product revolution, the digital transformation is going to come. It's going to eat part of what they're
Oh,
doing
interesting.
or their current job or whatever it is. And um, and yeah, and my recommendation usually, and I know this will sound a little bit meta, is look, there's this course. It's $99. You only pay it once. If you want to understand what it is, go for it. It's like the best offer in the market. So it's called 1 month PM. If you are, at a point where you know zero, you just go on YouTube and check Productized channel, check check our podcast, check other channels on YouTube, and just check what it is. Just, you know, give yourself a couple of hours to understand what product management is, what the product
For sure.
management role is, etc. If people are really fully vested into having this deep dive and doing a transformational career experience, I recommend them to do the digital product management course in Catholic, and now also in partnership with Technical. And it's a 9-week program, so it's more than double the time of the 1 month PM, but there's a capstone, and people actually get to do um, a full-fledged product for one of these big companies out there. So yeah, that's basically my recommendation template, so to speak.
Thank
So
you.
my advice, I'm gonna keep it short because I know we're going ahead of time. So the advice I give is it's based on a concept. It's not my concept, but it's called increasing your luck surface area. And the analogy I use is if you imagine luck as being something random, like rain, and you want luck to rain on you, the way to optimize raining on you is by increasing the surface where that might happen, right? So how do you do that? You do that by creating habits, by choosing to do stuff when you really don't want it because it's uncomfortable, or exposing yourself to situations where you might connect and learn, but you'd really prefer to be chilling on the couch watching Netflix, but you choose not to do that because you want to equip yourself, you want to get ahead of others, you want to be prepared. And that is increasing your luck surface area, because eventually luck might rain and you want to cover it, you want to be there, you want to be there ahead of others. And it's a bit like what Marquet said, is joining this, whether it's courses, conferences, Slack groups, communities, where you might not be prepared, but no one was until they are, and you want to suddenly become one because you want to chase the opportunity and suddenly be the person that seizes it. So I'd say, this is my advice normally I give. And every time people say, what would you say to your younger self, is continuously increase that luck surface area. There's always more that you can do. And that's my advice.
Great answers.
Great tips. And now I feel that we are ready to land the plane. And for that, me and Pedro usually always have two final questions, just to put a bit of sugar on top and get to know a bit more about our guests. I will start with the first one, and then Pedro, you can go with the second.
Absolutely.
And my first one is for you to choose your favorite quote.
Andre, you want to go first, or should I?
Favorite quote?
Yeah, quote.
Anything that
like
you
a
like.
saying.
A quote, like a
quote. Yeah, it can be a Portuguese saying.
Yeah,
can be
I really like the quote from Alan Kay, right? The creator of the Dynabook, and Sherrick Spark fellow, that said, if you want to, if I think they said something like, the future is there, but you have to create the future, right? So and I think that relates a lot to the entrepreneur's ethos, which is you see a problem. So there's no product management in Portugal, and then you have two options. You can live with it and keep whining about it, and eventually go to, I don't know, London, and solve that problem that way, or you can try to solve it and do a conference or organize a course, or I don't know, throw a party. So yeah, invent the future, right? You want to live in, and that's something I really enjoy.
So I'm going to cheat a bit. I'm going to give two quotes. One in Portuguese that I'm going to translate on purpose because I think it's even better translated. And then the quote that I admire and I try to kind of follow.
Portuguese translation quotes.
The Portuguese one is like, building products is about experience and shipping roadmaps. And I usually say that the best PMs are the ones who've been many years rotating chickens. So, which
I know
it kind of says a lot to me. It's about, in Portuguese it works, in English it becomes so much better. But the actual quote that I really admire is from Brian Chesky. I think he's the CEO I admire the most, and he said something like, and I think Richard Branson actually was the pioneer, but I think Brian kind of iterated, and he said, build a company people love working for so that they build a product people love consuming from. And I say this because oftentimes the biggest problem of people not being PMs or not being product thinkers is because managers don't understand that they need to look at their organization and their people like products, where the people are the features of the organization. And when you improve them, when you make them great, when you create an environment where people do love working for, they will build better products. And Marquet reminded something that I say, that I have a personal motto, which is, I think a manager's mission is to make people love Mondays. And if you create that, people will build better products and consumers will choose you. So that's kind of where I land this.
Fantastic. Oh my God, I need to take notes on this one. But it's being recorded, so it's fine. So last question. Last question for, to end the show is, André Albuquerque, one question for you to do to Marquet. Marquet, one question for you to do to Albuquerque.
Can I go first?
Yeah,
you can. By the way, you're free to not answer, so you're allowed to do that.
Well, I have to do a question that sometimes people ask me, and I don't really know how to answer. I guess I answer the way that I think it's fair, but I have to do it yourself. So, André, do you write your own LinkedIn posts? And
oh my God, love it.
And how do you get the discipline, or what is your framework to actually get to write all those beautifully crafted, witty posts that we see every week?
Jealous person here. Yes, I like the question.
I do write every single one of my posts. I envision a future where I have an amazing team working with me and writing, but that's not the present. That could be a future. It's a good problem to have.
Ghostwriter.
So I do write all of them. What I've done is, first, I think for people who want to write more, it's like a muscle. The more you write, the easier it becomes writing. So just start writing. Even if your first writing is crap, it doesn't matter. It's about creating the muscle. I think it's a good incentive. The second thing is remove the frills of writing. I write on my phone anywhere I am. The moment an idea strikes, I just take out the phone and I write. I start with writing like basic outline, like some ideas, some index, some agendas, some points that I want to transform. And then I turn it into a bit of a longer form, always on my phone, always commuting or whatever I'm at. And then I just start trimming and I get feedback. People start saying, like, I think this is a good idea. I think you're passing some type of knowledge here. I don't think this works. And then it's an iterative process. I look at my phone now, I have around 115 posts that I've started writing, but they're not completed yet. Eventually they're going to be completed. I might complete like 3 or 4 a week.
Do you use Notepad or any specific app too?
I use Notes from Apple, like the basic Notes thing. And but I do write all my posts, and it's about discipline. I know I have to post them every single week. It's kind of personal training for me as well, and I don't fail. And if I need to slip one last hour to do it, I choose to do it. It's, again, increasing your log surface area, and that led to a lot of 1 month PM spreading out and people getting to know it. And it's been working. And I know creating this incentive also helps. Like, I know that the more I write, more people know 1 month PM, the more they enroll, the more product thinkers I create in the world. And it's a flywheel.
Yeah. Super cool.
I answered the question. Yes, I
did.
So my question is a bit different because, so Marquet, you're a father, right? You have kids. Let's call your kids maybe the best product you'll ever build. But my real question is, what do you use from your product knowledge on your kids' education? Okay, so what process, what frameworks, what do you bring? What do you say is one thing you'd bring that educating a person, a human being, which is the ultimate product? What would you use and recommend others to use?
All right. So
taking
you're
notes.
asking
I'm taking
me
notes.
if I'm doing product experimentation with my own kids. Yes, I do.
A/B testing, no, sorry.
A/B testing. No.
You
A/B
have
test, that would be
twins.
great.
Twins you can A/B test. That
Um,
would be beautiful.
that would be beautiful. Yeah. So what one I know that I do for sure is ask why. So I really try, and I don't think this is necessarily just a product. Maybe it's more of a design thinking philosophy, but I really ask why, and I never give the answer. So they ask me, "Hey, Dad, why is this?" And I always ask back, "What are you saying about it? What's your opinion about it? What you know?" And they get really, really mad at me because I'm never giving them the answers to stuff. Right? I'm always saying, "What's your theory about it?" And usually they have great theories about it, and usually like 90% they actually know the answer to what they're asking, right? So that's definitely one of the frameworks I'm using, asking why, making them feel owners of their own answers in a way, right? And having this ownership, self-ownership effect, self-leadership, if you want to call it that way.
I was so hoping you'd say OKRs. I have OKRs with my kids, but
I don't. But I
that's a
bet
missed opportunity.
when you have kids, you will use those cards with your
And
kids.
quarter
When
reviews.
you have kids, I think it's really hard to predict the future in any meaningful way. I think that's one of the biggest takeaways. I have 3 kids, right? And all of them are very different. And I try to give them the same opportunities to all of them, right? It's not like one is
true,
A/B
that's-
testing, but then you realize that genes are so important. The way people are is just the way people are. So you as a father, you have only so much that you can do to shape their and craft their personality and so on. So yeah, I think that's one of the biggest learnings I have as a father myself.
Love it.
I love the questions. I love the answers. Really great. I think this is
Such a good
a
show.
great end to this amazing conversation. I think we learned a lot. We started by getting to know both Andres. We also know more about Productized and 1 month PM. We went through a bit the whole landscape around product management in Portugal.
For sure.
We even got some tips for people that want to become product managers. So this was really great, and thank you both. Thank you for this amazing conversation, and thank you everyone.
Thank you very
for
much for
this.
the invite.
Thank
This
you.
was
Had a
awesome.
great time.
Okay,
Thank
good
you
luck.
all.
Continue growing, hey CTO.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Bye, all. Thank you.
Bye.
Bye-bye.